Welcome to a compilation of TLDR boss guides for Vault of the Incarnates, because why watch them individually when you can have it all in one place? Eranog. Position the raid on the outside of the room and the boss on the inside. He has a frontal cleave, so face him away, and Burning Wound is a stacking tank dot, so swap before you die. Maybe with 100 extra staff, Blizzard will come up with something different for tanks in the future. Flame Rift targets a bunch of players and makes them deal splash damage, but they each drop an expanding pool and summon an ad. The ads fixate on random players, so run away or use your best Genji impression, and maybe the raid will kill them. Drop these to one side and everyone slowly move around the room. For healers, Incinerating Roar is a big hit of damage and a stacking dot. And on Heroic, Molten Spikes appear that deal big damage and knock up anyone standing on them, so maybe don't. Incinerating Roar makes the spikes explode, turning them into no-no patches on the floor, so don't stand near the spikes when it goes off. At 100 energy, the boss teleports to the middle of the room and summons a ring of ads at the edge. The ads move towards the boss, so pick one to kill, but don't stand underneath it or you'll probably fucking die. The lava pools give them an absorb shield, so go for an ad that won't go over one. Then have fun padding on the rest of the ads, but Warcraft logs probably won't count the damage. And lastly, there's ticking damage while the ads are alive, so pop a cooldown if you need to, but you should be fine. Terros. Make sure a tank is in range at all times or it'll fuck you all up. Shattering Impact is a big swirl to dodge if you're not mid cooldown, which then causes more swirls around the room. On Heroic, these swirls leave a patch on the floor for the rest of the fight, so don't stand in them. Rock Blast is the main mechanic of the fight, which targets a player and deals split damage, so you need to stack up. It then leaves behind an aftershock, so don't stay in the same place. At the same time, several players will get Awakened Earth, dealing splash damage, knocking them up, and spawning a pillar at their feet. The raid takes ticking damage for each pillar alive, and this is where healers will start having fun, depending on how fun you find panic healing the raid. To destroy the pillars, tanks get Concussive Slam, a beam similar to the Mighty Crab, which they need to aim at them. Or if there aren't any pillars, have fun griefing your DPS. When destroyed, each pillar puts a stacking dot on the raid, so try not to destroy more than your healers can handle. Drop these pillars in a line so the tank can easily hit them, and see how many you can destroy at once before you need to split the group. At 100 energy, he casts Resonating Annihilation, a frontal cone that covers a quarter of the room in shit, so you will have a time limit until the room fills up. It also spawns more swirls that leave patches, as if a quarter of the room wasn't enough, and after each cone cast, an additional pillar will spawn, starting at 4 and going up to 7. Once the room is filled, he does AoE until everyone dies, so make sure you kill him before you get this far. Sennarth. During phase 1, the boss sits in the middle of a spiral staircase and moves slowly upwards while everyone chases her. The phase revolves around two floor mechanics, ice and webs, or as others might refer to it, ice and cummies. Nope. That is too much for me. Anyway, Breath of Ice spawns patches of slippery ice on the floor, turning it into Maria's cool mountain. Enveloping webs makes a few players drop webs at their feet for 6 seconds, which slows your movement, so drop these over the ice patches. If you stand in them for too long though, they slow your movement by 75%, and on Heroic it'll stun you, so don't chill inside just because you can. Spiderling ads will spawn every so often, and when they die, they explode, removing webs from the ground and anyone with wrapped in webs. So everyone can abuse the Moonkins when Starfall kills them too soon, and your passers get fucked. Gossamer Burst pulls everyone towards the boss, and if you get pulled off the platform, you'll probably fucking die. Make sure you get dragged across some webs to avoid this. Chilling Blast puts a dot on the entire raid and makes everyone deal splash damage, so spread out and healers might want to pop a cooldown. And Web Blast is a stacking tank hit that I can't come up with more jokes for how fucking boring this is, so please, Blizzard, make something else. On each platform, a big ad spawns which needs to be killed fairly soon. It has a frontal that drops ice, so it needs to be tanked. Just pull it to the boss and melee watch out. And it deals increasing raid-wide damage the longer it's alive, so multi-dotters go nuts. Deal as much damage to the boss as you can before it reaches the top, as once she does, she casts Apex of Ice, which needs to be interrupted, otherwise she'll take reduced damage until you do. And this starts phase 2 with each ability being a little bit different. She still does the tank hit, but will now be on the floor. Repelling Burst pushes you away instead of pulling you in, so don't get knocked off the edge or you'll probably fucking die. Chilling Blast is the same, but now everyone drops a small cloud that deals damage and knocks you back, so don't run into it for fun. Or do, I don't care. Suffocating Webs is a dot that knocks you back and gives you wrapped in webs when it ends, so on Heroic you'll be stunned for 30 seconds. And Pervasive Cold is a soft enrage that increases boss damage over time, so kill her before you all freeze. Primal Council. First, the easy stuff. Tanks need to swap between Opalfang and Firepath as they both have tank hits. Ice Wrath and Dathea also need to be picked up, but don't need to be swapped or actively tanked, which must be a huge relief because tanks clearly have far too much going on already. But they do both have casts that need to be interrupted. Crush is a big physical tank hit from Opalfang with a physical damage taken increase, and at 100 energy, Firepath does a frontal cleave with a heavy stacking dot to anyone hit, so no one stand in front of the boss. Swap after each cleave, or if you can survive more, flex your tanking skills and make your healers sweat. When each boss dies, they start dealing raid-wide damage, so you'll need to kill them all at roughly the same time to avoid this for too long. Now for the interactive stuff. Axes, pillars, marks, and blizzard. Meteor Axe targets 2 players and deals massive split damage, so you'll need several players to stack on top of them, and they leave a scorch patch on the floor. Immunities will be very useful for this if they don't troll people, and try not to cut off the raid with the patches as they're pretty big and they last about a minute. On Heroic, you can't soak twice or you'll probably fucking die, so you'll need to rotate groups to soak it. You could also try forcing this onto an immunity class if you know the tactic from Dorzegni in Sepulchre, and the blast also destroys rock pillars, so use this to clear them. These rock pillars pillars spawn underneath about 4 players, which you can dodge, so you should. They pile up pretty quickly, so clear whenever you can, but leave some up to deal with the marks. On heroic, each pillar does ticking damage to the raid, so you'll definitely need to clear them. Conductive marks give a ramping dot that jumps to anyone near you. Get rid of it by standing near a pillar and try not to give it to the entire raid as you run towards one. And at 100 energy, Ice Wrath will channel Primal Blizzard, giving everyone a stacking dot and doing light pushback. Get rid of the dot by dipping into a scorch patch left by the axes, and if you don't clear before you get to 10 stacks, you'll be frozen in an ice block and need to be broken out. Don't be the shitter who can't run over hot coals to save their own life. In short, dodge pillars, stack and clear pillars with axes, hug a pillar if you get the mark, and step into the lava during Blizzard before you reach 10 stacks. Kill them together and it's GG. Dathea. This fight is a total dodge fest, so if you struggle pressing your movement keys, you might have issues. Spread around the platform to make it easier, but not so far that you range your healers. Zephyr Slam is a tank hit that knocks you away, increases your damage taken, and increases the knockback it does. If you get knocked too far, you'll take another tank hit, so taunt after every cast to save your partner from RPing as Team Rocket. Raging Burst summons tornadoes around the main platform that deal damage and knock you up if you touch them. They don't disappear, so the longer the fight goes on, the more tornadoes you'll have. Whenever the boss casts crosswinds, all the tornadoes move to another location, which can be easily seen by the giant arrow beneath them. There's also a ground effect to show where they'll end up, so you can't bullshit your raid leader by saying you couldn't see it. Conductive Mark is a ramping dot that can spread to anyone near you, so practice social distancing. But WoW players are probably about as good as that as everyone else. Cyclone is a giant suck, so don't get dragged under the boss. And the main ability is Coalescing Storm, which summons Infuser adds, one on the boss and one on a platform around the room. They channel Diverted Essence, which buffs the boss, so interrupt the one with the boss ASAP and send some DPS over to interrupt and kill the one on the platform. To get to the platform, the adds do a big hit of damage and a massive knockback when they die, so have a tank position it between the boss and the platform you need to go to. And anyone going to the platform needs to position themselves to be thrown over and not get flashbacks of Dispelling on Ner'zhul. And the infusers also throw out swirls, so casters have to move even more. On heroic, there'll also be smaller adds on the platform, which just cast on random targets, so send some AoE classes to pad their damage. And anyone on the outer platforms will take ramping ticking damage, so the faster you kill them the better. Then use the knockback from killing the infuser on the platform to get back to the boss. Rinse and repeat until the boss is dead. Kurog. Kurog is available after killing all previous bosses and alternates between a boss phase and an add phase. The 4 altars around the room determine which abilities the boss has, and you can drag him to whichever you want. The boss gains stacks of elemental dominance while at an altar, which deals increasing raid-wide damage, so drag him to a new one before your healers commit seppuku. On normal, you can swap freely, but on heroic, when you swap, he deals a hit of raid-wide, and you won't be able to swap again for 20 seconds or you'll all fucking die. At every altar, he casts Sundering Strike, a tank hit and a frontal cone with a stacking dot, so don't stand on the tank and face him away. It also knocks you back pretty far, so keep him facing a wall. Now for the altar abilities, starting with fire. Magma Burst puts swirls under a few players that spawn lava pools. Don't get hit and don't stand in the pools. Searing Carnage makes several players drop swirls at their feet for a bit, so only run it over the guy who needed on your items. And on heroic, Molten Rupture is lines of swirls from the boss, so again, don't get hit. For Frost, Biting Chill is a dot on the raid for the healers to deal with. Absolute Zero deals massive split damage to someone, stack up so they don't die, and if you can immune it, remember to call it so you don't kill anyone else. On heroic, you can't soak twice or you'll probably fucking die, so split the raid to help soak. Also on heroic, he casts Frigid Torment, which shoots out ice balls from the boss to dodge. The Earth Altar is clearly for padding, as Seismic Rupture creates large swirls that spawn adds. The adds deal increasing damage the longer they're alive, so maybe now you want to rethink the Starfall nerf. Erupting Bedrock creates rings of danger moving outward from the boss, so dodge them by moving in, not running away. And on heroic, Enveloping Earth is a massive healing absorb on a few players. And finally Storm. Shocking Burst makes a few players deal splash damage in a big circle, so fuck off if it's on you. Thunderstrike throws out soaks to, well, soak, but if you miss, you all die, so don't miss. And on heroic, Lightning Crash targets several players, making them pulse damage to the nearest person, and increasing nature damage taken. Stand next to someone without the debuff, or you'll blame each other for being the reason you're both dead. At 100 energy, Kurog becomes immune and summons 2 adds based on his dominance stacks, which means the 2 altars you used in the previous phase will be the adds you get. The fire add throws out big swirls that leave lava pools behind, and on heroic, they spawn an add that casts on random players. Interrupt them and cleave them down. The storm add teleports around and makes the closest player pulse damage to anyone nearby, so if it's on you, pop a defensive or get a tankier class to take it for you. The earth add gets a stacking damage buff while attacking, which resets when it swaps target, so tanks should swap before their armor resembles a sprite can. It also gives some players a big splash circle, so move out if you get it, and it spawns big swirls to dodge. And the ice add casts Frozen Binds, which is a big hit and a dot on the raid, so interrupt every cast. It also casts Freezing Tempest, a storm that deals big damage to anyone too far away, so stack on the add while it happens. You only get 2 at a time, but the add priority will probably be based on which your group can deal with the best. After the second round of adds, the boss enters the final phase, casting abilities from every altar and dealing ramping raid-wide damage until he dies. Do your best to survive, and hopefully you got him low enough to not do it for very long. Diurna. Phase 1 involves destroying the eggs around the room that prevent her from dying by using her greatstaff. She plants it in the ground so you can interact with it and use the beam that follows you to destroy the eggs. Make 2 people staff clickers and have them do it straight away every time, because the beam is pretty slow. On Heroic, the boss does raid-wide damage when you pop an egg, and the second pop kind of hurts, so use a healing cooldown to top everyone up if you need to. Every time she reaches 100 energy, she empowers the closest 2 eggs, so these will be the ones you want to destroy. If they hatch, they spawn an ad that attacks people, so just cleave it down. Mortal Stoneclaws is a tank hit that trucks you for damage, gives a heavy dot and a 65% healing reduction, so swap after every cast. Wildfire deals raid-wide damage with a dot, then makes everyone drop a swirl. If you get hit, you get the whole thing again, so don't keep chaining it like a discount nipple daddy. On Heroic, everyone deals splash damage when they drop the swirl, so spread out quick to avoid getting hit. And Icy Shroud is a healing absorb on the raid that just needs to be healed off. Now for the 6 different ads, and I'll go over them in priority order. They spawn around the edge of the room in groups of 3 to 5, so the off tank should pick them up before they start melting the raid. And the boss will buff them if they get too close, so keep them away and DPS should swap to them. First, Flamebenders spawn rotating flamethrower orbs that really fucking hurt and take up a shitload of space. On Heroic, they also cast cauterizing flash flames, dealing 20% of everyone's health and healing the ad. Kill it quick and you won't have to deal with it for long. Second, Frost Proto-Dragons cast Chilling Tantrum, pulsing heavy raid-wide damage and are slow, so healers might want to pop a CD for this. On Heroic, they also do Rending Bite, a tank hit with a bleed, or a one-shot if you're a DPS with no self-control. Third, Stormbringers target several players and make them deal splash damage, so don't hug people if you've got it. And on Heroic, they also have a cast that just needs to be interrupted. Fourth, Earth Reavers send out a frontal cone to dodge, so watch where they're facing, or have someone call it out. And on Heroic, they also charge the tank, dealing big damage and an armor reduction debuff, so kill it before it gets too high. And the final 2, Mages and Legionnaires, are fairly weak and can just be cleaved down. Just try to interrupt the mages to group them up, and also their cast does kind of hurt. At 50%, you'll trigger phase 2 and empower the boss, but you still need to destroy all the eggs to actually kill her. The boss buffs her damage, and Mortal Wounds now lasts twice as long, and this stacks every 30 seconds. Empowered Greatstaff happens fairly often, and targets about 4 to 6 people each time, so don't get killed by this actual laser beam. Icy Shroud becomes Frozen Shroud, dealing raid-wide damage, a big healing absorb, and locking everyone in ice. You can still cast, so free everyone quickly, and I know which spell would be best. And Wildfire still happens, exactly the same as phase 1. Try to focus the boss as much as you can, and save Lust for this phase where you can get as much damage into the boss as possible before it all gets too hectic. Raszageth. Phase 1 starts on the main platform with the boss. Have the raid stand behind the boss and tanks face it away. Electrified Jaws is a big tank hit of magical and physical damage with a heavy dot and a damage taken increase, so swap before you die if you can survive it all. Electrified Scales is raid-wide ticking damage for healers to deal with. Lightning Strikes are swirls, so don't get hit. And Lightning Breath is a frontal on a random player, so watch the boss and don't stand in it. Static Charge makes 3 players deal fall-off damage and drop a big pool that slows you, so drop them at the edge and have the raid move into the boss to reduce the damage. At 100 energy, the boss does raid-wide damage and a pushback, so position yourself to get pushed into a pool and not go off the edge. Volatile Current makes everyone deal splash damage and spawn an ad, so you need to spread out and interrupt or purge the ad to kill it, so have everyone interrupt their own ad to get rid of them ASAP. Better check those talent trees for this one. At around 65%, you begin the first intermission, and the Vault Integrity bar will start ticking down. 3 Ruiner ads spawn on the 2 side platforms, and everyone gets thrown off the main platform, so split the raid and put markers on each side so everyone knows where to stand. The Ruiners have a damage shield that spawns a bunch of smaller ads when you break it, so interrupt the Acolytes, burn them all down, then move on to the next one. On Heroic, players also get Surging Blast, so move out if you get it. And the boss does an overhead breath, so check where it is for yourself and don't always trust the call out. Kill them all as soon as you can to give you more time in phase 2. After all the ads are dead or you reach 50% integrity, the boss returns to the last platform to start phase 2. The tank hit, swirls, ticking damage and volatile charge ads from phase 1 still happen here, so deal with them the same way if you don't have the memory of a Fury Warrior. Tempest Wing is a big wave you need to run or blink through with a hit of raid wide and a pushback. At 100 energy, the boss casts Storm Surge, a damage shield with ramping raid wide damage while it's up. Pop a healer cooldown or 2 to survive, but if you don't break it in time, you'll probably fucking die. Everyone also gets given a positive or negative charge, and stacking with the same mark gives you a damage and healing buff. On Heroic, if you're close to an opposite mark, you'll start zapping each other, so have one group run to the middle of the boss and the other stay on the edge. Fulminating Charge targets 3 players with a massive circle, so if you get it, get the fuck out of the raid, and if you hit anyone, they get it again. It also slows you, so don't be the priest who needs to finish their cast before moving. Deal as much damage as you can, and when you reach 0 integrity, you'll start the second intermission. The boss goes back to the sky to do her breath, and a Storm Fiend ad spawns in the middle. Ball Lightning shoots out orbs to dodge, so don't get hit. Crackling Lightning is ticking damage for healers, and every so often it teleports away, dealing raid-wide damage and spawning ads that will run back to him. If they reach the big ad, they'll heal and buff it, so push them, slow them, fuck them, whatever you want, but swap and kill them ASAP. On Heroic, you'll have 2 Storm Fiends, and killing one will buff the other, so split the raid and kill them at the same time to avoid this for too long. And after they die, you'll be thrown back to the main platform to start phase 3. This will be a DPS race due to the expanding storm at the edge. Tempest Wing and Fulminating Charge happen here, so stack on one side of the boss and have the circles frontals get as far away as possible. If you run out of room, have them commit Sudoku in the storm instead. And the random frontal happens as well, so watch out and don't get hit. Tanks will now get an unavoidable beam, but it also deals raid-wide damage based on how much damage he takes, so use defensives and externals to lower it as much as you can. And lastly on heroic, magnetic charge makes a player deal fall-off damage and pull everyone to them when it ends, just like Zymox. Have them run to the other side of the boss or as far away as they can. Kill the boss before you run out of room or your tanks are the only ones left. Congrats on clearing the first raid in Dragonflight. Now we can relax and try not to think about when we had to farm domination shards. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one.